Good morning. Welcome to KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning, and available not only on KIDO Talk Radio 107.5 FM, 580 AM, the KIDO Talk Radio app. Joining us now is Luke Caldwell. You know him from Timber and Love. You know him from being all over the Treasure Valley. You know him from Boise Boys, a proud member of the Treasure Valley, proud member of the city of Boise, who has honored us to be here. For people, Luke, that don't know who you are, and I'm going to be a fanboy for the entire hour that we have you here, and people will find out more about that in a minute. But you know, for people that don't know who you are and how you're motivated by your faith to make a difference, can you share with us who is Luke Caldwell?
Oh, sure. Well, thanks again for having me here, Kevin. It's a blessing to be here with you today. And you know, I'm just honestly, I'm a pretty simple person. I don't think there's truly anything special about me. I did marry an amazing wife who's got an amazing heart, and it was really, I think we've just together as a team, we've really just, you know, we know who we are as a family unit, and we're really, you know, focused in our lives. And I attribute a lot of that to her and her faith and her love for people. It's really incredible. And but more than anything, I think, you know, you got one life to live, and it's really that simple. And I want to live with intention, and I want to live with a passion, and really want to live with focus.
People say that, but in the secular world that we live in, it's so tough when you have all these temptations, all these threats. As someone who practices their faith, sacrifices for their faith, is a good family man, how do you succeed in the world that we live in today?
Well, I just think you got to be authentic. I think it's about being just real. The reality of it is we all have issues and struggles and insecurities and things that, you know, are always lurking in our lives. But you know, none of us are perfect. None of us got it all together. But I think if you every day take that step forward to be intentional in your life, to show that, you know, people around you are important and worthy to be loved. It doesn't matter who they are, or, you know, what their background is, or, you know, anything about that person, that every person deserves to be loved. And you live a life out that really tries to show that in your life, in your daily interactions, whether it be with your kids or your spouse or the people you meet at a grocery store. I mean, that's really, to me, where a life is fulfilled. I know my mom told me when I was a little kid that it really is better to give than receive, and it's such a simple little statement. But when we choose to live that way, and we're seeking to give, you know, time and give our ear and give our finances or resources or encouragement to the people around us, it really brings joy into your life.
Well, and that's what you do, whether we're talking about your show on television, we'll talk a little bit about that, your business. But we were talking off the air saying, you know, how long have I been here? I've been here 10 years. You in the Treasure Valley, you in Boise, a lot longer than that. What do you make of all the changes?
It's crazy. I mean, Boise is an amazing place. I know when I was a little kid, I mean, I remember there being one restaurant, the McDonald's over where down off of Main Street, or is it Idaho Street, where I think it's Main Street, where the police just purchased it for their new police headquarters. That used to be the McDonald's when I was a little kid, and that literally was like the only place to go out to eat when I was a little kid. And I remember just Boise was so different. It was very small and low key, and more than anything, as it's grown, you know, a lot of people see the negative in it. I really see the positive. I think it's brought a lot more diversity and culture to our city, a lot better food, I would say. And I really like it. I think Boise is turning into a place of just a really great place to hang out, raise a family. I mean, it's an incredible place to live. I love it.
Well, what's your advice to all the new people moving in?
I would say, you know, enjoy it and try to, you know, to respect what has been here for so long, because Boise has amazing roots. I think Boise is an amazing community, and, you know, it's just so beautiful, and you want it to stay beautiful and safe and kind. And so I think more than anything, you know, we want to keep Boise kind. We want to be a place where everyone feels loved and feels welcome. And I think it's interesting, and you meet a lot of people in the city that are like, well, now that I'm here, no one else can come. And it's kind of like, life doesn't work like that. Like, let's be welcoming and loving, but at the same time, let's all honor our city in the right way.
Well, indeed, of course, and I say this with the utmost respect. We have the beautiful Meridian, Nampa,
of course,
right? You know, the entire Treasure Valley.
The Treasure Valley is incredible. I mean, it's such a great space. I know for me being a dad and having 7 kids now, there is so much to do. I mean, there's so many fun places to go. We live right on the Greenbelt, and so just being able to jump out and ride our bikes and go fishing and go down to Whitewater Park, go up to Lucky Peak, go hiking. It's just such a great place where you can go and enjoy the outdoors and enjoy life without having to spend a bunch of money.
Well, and on your show, the Boise Boys, HGTV, you are ambassadors for Boise, and it's amazing when you take a look at what's on television. Towns like Boise, there isn't one like them, but you and Clint are the ambassadors for the Trinity. Talk about the bench, talk about this neighborhood and this house that you could get for practically free, but you'd have to move it.
Well, I definitely wouldn't consider us ambassadors, but we have an incredible opportunity to be able to show how beautiful our city really is. And we love our production company, High Noon Productions. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, this is the production company that created the biggest show in the history of HGTV. They created Fixer Upper, and they found Chip and Joanna Gaines, much like they found us, through social media, and said, hey, these are unique people that live in a unique area, and we're going to tell their story, and we're going to follow their business. And it was really the first model on television where they started following the business rather than just having hosts. Because back in the day, HGTV was just host-oriented. There would be a host kind of telling a story of whatever was going on that day for the show. And High Noon came up with this idea, let's follow their business, let's get into their lives, let's kind of see their city and their background and their family and kind of put it all together into a show. And it obviously was very successful. And so when they found Clint and I, they wanted to basically do the same thing. They said, we love your city. HGTV doesn't have a city in the Northwest, not one. And you guys are from an incredible city that's the fastest growing city in America. And I will make mention, it was the fastest growing city in America before we had the show. So a lot of people try to blame it on us, but it's Boise has been a treasure for a long time. And the word's been getting out for, probably the last 10, 15 years pretty consistently. It's just been growing, but we've really hit this tipping point where people are noticing, and High Noon said, we love you guys, your stories, your families, your city, and what you do, the beautiful homes that you create. And so we're really grateful that we have the opportunity now to be able to share that with people all over the world.
Right.
The show has gone all over the world now.
Luke Caldwell joining us, Boise Boys, Timber and Love, a very unique show, and I love this, the unconventional approach to house flipping in their hometown of Boise. A couple more questions about the show, then we really want to get into the family. By the way, when can people watch it and where?
So that's a good question. They've been kind of moving our show around a little bit, trying to find the strongest audience for us. It's been doing extremely well everywhere it goes, but they really felt like Saturdays was going to be the best moving forward, because Saturdays is they said their biggest family day, and they've noticed our show's really been resonating with families as a whole. Families watch together is what a lot of their market research has been telling them, and so they're trying to find us the best slot on Saturdays. We were at 8 p.m. Eastern this last Saturday, which was 6 o'clock here on DirecTV. And the show did really well. It was actually their top-ranked show of the entire day. And so hopefully that looks like this is where we're going to be staying moving forward. But we're kind of our hands are kind of open. We don't always know what's going on. Fun fact, we actually don't even get to see the show before it airs. I mean, we are literally in their hands. I mean, every single episode, they record hundreds and hundreds of hours, and we don't see a thing until it actually airs. So you never know what you're actually going to see. But thankfully, we've got a good production company.
Well, and you two have a unique chemistry, a great sense of humor when you're dealing with the high-priced world of flipping. How did you and Clint meet and come up with this concept of Timber and Love?
Well, it's kind of funny because I don't think it was definitely not something that we ever, aspired to. We definitely didn't try to become, on TV. We weren't trying to get on TV. We weren't even really trying to start a company ultimately. I was actually flipping houses on my own here in Boise. I was trying to raise money for our adoptions. My wife and I have adopted 5 kids now. We have 2 of our own that we had biologically. And so 7 kids total we have. And it all started from, flipping houses. I was a touring musician at the time and wasn't making enough money where I had an extra $35,000 sitting around to adopt internationally. And so I decided to buy a house, fix it up, and sell it to try to help pay for that adoption. And we also had family and friends help us as well on that first adoption. And we were able to bring our first little boy, Morris, home. And so I was doing that kind of on the side, and I was flipping on the side because I was touring still.
Wait a minute, touring and flipping houses.
Exactly, because when you tour, you're on tour for about 2 weeks at a time,
right? And
so then I would come home, and I honestly didn't have a lot to do. And I mean, I would write songs here and there, but I felt like I've always kind of been an entrepreneur where I'm like, okay, I can't just sit around doing nothing, and how can I figure out how to make some extra money to be able to pay for these adoptions? And so that's basically what ended up happening. And I had maybe done 4 or 5 flips, but by the time I had met Clint, he had moved to Boise because his son was going to Boise State University, and he was only 16 at the time. He was living up in Coeur d'Alene, and his son got a scholarship down here. And so he just said, we're going to head down. We're going to be helicopter parents. We're not going to just let our 16-year-old live on his own in going to Boise State, because they were homeschooled, and his kids are brilliant, and they've all been extremely successful. And so they moved down here, and he wasn't planning on staying here, and he just fell in love with Boise and really realized that, wow, Boise's in a hot spot right now as far as the market goes. And Clint's been in real estate his whole life. And so when we met, it just was this like immediate connection. We actually met at Whole Foods through a mutual friend.
At Whole Foods over here?
Yeah, just right around the corner. And we just started talking shop, and he was asking me about neighborhoods and say, man, it's just crazy. I can just sense like what's going on. I've seen this in the market before, and this is crazy. This is a good time to be in. I said, yeah, I'm kind of doing it on the side. And he's like, we should do something together. And I'm like, I'm not trying to like start a business or anything. I'm just trying to pay for our adoptions. I'm a touring musician. That's what I like to do. And he's like, well, if you ever need any help, like I'd love to help you. I've been doing it my whole life. And I said, well, actually, that would be a blessing, because when I leave for 2 weeks, everything just stops. All my workers there's no one to like make sure things are continuing to go on. It's like, let me do that for you. Let me just help you. And I'll just do it for free. I just want to get to know the market, get to know you. And that sounds great. And so he actually started helping me, and it was a huge blessing. And then we said, what, let's do a house together. And so we found our first house, did it together. It was extremely successful. And we realized, like, literally that light bulb went off. We're like, man, this is so much better being together than separate. Even though we both understand real estate, we're both successful on our own without each other, we really are better together. Clint handled all of the logistics, the finances. He obviously is a contractor. I love, finding the houses, designing the houses.
You love to paint the inside of the houses.
That's right.
With your designs.
Yeah.
And you love to go to the stores. And one of the episodes,
find all the nuggets that go into
the Idaho Youth Branch. You featured one of the stores there.
Exactly. And so it's just such a great synergy, and we just really bonded. I think we were rowing the boat in the same direction, as Clint always says. And even though we're different ages and we're at different seasons of life,
right,
we really just have this connection, and really, we're best friends. I mean, we love each other, yet we don't always see eye to eye. And so there's a little bit of that friction going on at times, but it really, at the end of the day, I know that we are successful because we both bring, so much to the table.
More with Luke Caldwell next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And, this is one of those episodes where if you can get to the podcast on the KIDO Talk Radio app, you're not going to get the commercials. We love our sponsors, but this is just too good to be true. I'm not pandering. Luke Caldwell joining us, Timber and Love, Boise Boys, and we're going to talk about family in 2 seconds. Timber and Love, where'd you get that name?
Well, we started thinking about it, and we really wanted to say who we were within our name, and we usually...
Okay, who's the Timber and who's the Love?
Well, exactly. Well, I think Clint and I we kind of debate on that, but I usually say he's the Timber and I'm the Love, but I think it kind of goes hand in hand. I actually love working with timber. I do a lot of wood accents in our homes and throughout our homes, and obviously we use timber to build our homes. And then we both want to do it with love in our community, and we want to be motivated by love.
You're two men that say
doing.
That you don't have an issue with that. I
do not have an issue with that. I think that love is, I've seen in my life, the most powerful thing that any of us could ever have or give, and I want everything I'm doing in my life to be motivated by love. Otherwise, I really truly don't think it has a lot of value.
More coming up next. KIDO Talk Radio, traffic and weather together. Good morning, Dave. And rolling once again, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio app and on the radio. and everywhere else. Luke Caldwell joining us from the Boise Boys, HGTV, Timber and Love locally. We talk about unconditional love. And and anybody, and folks, if you haven't seen the show, you can do YouTube, Amazon Prime, you can go to DirecTV, Dish Network. And to me, your show is really not about house flipping or even the business. It's about your friendship with Clint, the care and compassion that you both have for your families, and that you share that openly. Can you share with us your family, sir?
Yeah, well, that's really sweet of you to say, Kevin, because that ultimately is, Clint and I always say, if it's not about our families and it's not about, who we are as dads and fathers, then we're just a couple dudes flipping houses trying to make money, and that's just not who we are. Family really is the most important thing to us in our lives, and I know for me as a dad and as a husband, I want to do as good of a job as I can. I want to be able to provide. I want to be able to love. I want to be an example. Do I do it perfectly? Not even close. As we all know that it's a struggle at times, and especially when you got 7 kids. But it's what I'm passionate about. I really find joy in just being with my family and spending time with them and just being in their presence. I mean, it's really a beautiful thing.
Indeed. But as you mentioned, you've got 7 children. Mm-hmm. And you adopt children, and anyone who's gone through the adoption process internationally, whether domestic or international, it's so difficult. What moved you to do this? And for people that haven't seen the show, which probably is a lot of folks, could you share with us what you've shared with the international audience?
Yeah, sure. So basically, as I was telling you earlier, my wife and I, we had 2 kids of our own, Elias and Brighton, and we felt like we kind of hit the lottery there. We had a boy and a girl, and we were like, all right, and we both had a heart to adopt. We knew this kind of early on. My dad used to take me to India when I was a kid, and we did some mission work over there as far as helping start orphanages. And I went over there when I was 12, and I lived there I probably went like 4 or 5 different times, and every time it was 2 weeks to a month, and it really impacted me because just seeing all these little kids that didn't have families, they didn't have parents. It really like resonated deep within my soul, and I know that because later on, like in life, it wouldn't ever go away. I think once you're exposed to something, you see like it's just not fair. You want to try to do anything you can to help that situation. My wife also had gone to Romania and seen a lot of just really tragic situations for children, and so I think both of us collectively, especially after we had 2 kids, we were like, we want to adopt. And we weren't sure from whether it was going to be internationally or whether it'd be local through foster care. I mean, we wanted the greatest need. And so ultimately, most people adopt because they can't have kids. And that wasn't the case for us. So we felt like we want to adopt the kids that most likely aren't going to get adopted, that most likely will not find a family. And so we started becoming more drawn to kids with special needs. And it was kind of a process that didn't happen overnight because, it's you don't know what to expect. We'd never really been down that road before, but we got drawn to this little boy in China, and his name was Mao Sin Quan, and he couldn't walk. He was paralyzed from the waist down, and that's all we really knew about him. He was 5 years old. And he was actually older than Elias, and so a lot of people were like, you shouldn't adopt anyone older than your firstborn child. But there was just something about him that we were really drawn to him. And so we just really started praying and asking, like, God, where do you want us to adopt from? What do you want us to do? Well, in China, you have to be 30 years old to adopt. And we were 29 at the time, and so we were waiting to kind of make a decision. And it was really amazing, Kevin. Actually, we were on tour in Astoria, Oregon, and my wife was with us on tour, and the 2 kids were with us. And we were packing up all of our equipment into the van and the trailer. And my wife was sitting there all by herself in the car, and the 2 kids were sleeping. And she told me that she just had this vision that there was a little child who was Chinese that was sitting next to her around 5 years old. And she just could see him clear as day. And so that's when she started looking at children from China, and that's when she saw Mao Sin Quan and started feeling like maybe this is our child. And so we started talking about it, praying about it for about 7 or 8 months. I mean, it wasn't anything like we got to make an immediate decision, and we just kind of learned a little bit about him, and that was it. And we had to wait till we were 30 to be able to adopt. And so that time was getting really close. It's about 8 months later now. And we said, we got to decide what we're going to do. We got to figure out, if we're going to adopt him or someone else, we need to make a decision. And so about a week later, my wife calls me up. I'm on tour, and she's like, Luke, this is crazy. And I said, what's going on? She's like, we've been, praying that God would give us a sign, that he would show us who to adopt. And I said, yeah. And she's like, well, I just was praying for Mouse and Quan, and I reopened his file, and I was looking at his birthday, and it said his birthday was November 17th. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, what's that about? And she was like, well, remember when we were on tour in Astoria, Oregon, and I had that vision of a little child sitting next to me? And I said, yeah. And she's like, well, I went back on your tour schedule, and I looked at that date, and it was November 17th. And I said, are you serious? She's like, yeah, it's literally the same day as his birthday was that day I told you about that vision. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's insane. I was like, he's our son. And so he, that day we decided that he's our boy. And so we adopted him, and it just, it changed our lives. I mean, he has literally brought more joy and love into our family than we ever could imagine. And he actually asked us to go back and adopt his best friend, Tucker. So we went back and adopted his brother, who's now his brother.
And we're going to talk about that more. A very powerful message, a powerful interview, a powerful message of faith here this morning with Luke Caldwell. More next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Available free anytime on the KIDO Talk Radio app, Apple Play, Google Play, Apple Podcasting Store. By the way, it is free. We hope to earn your real estate, some of your real estate on your phone. We understand that's very valuable. Luke Caldwell joining us locally from Timber and Love, internationally, Boise Boys, HGTV. It takes a while to say that, HGTV.
A lot of people say HG now.
Right, HG, but and if you're just tuning in, folks, we really recommend you go back for the podcast on this one. You've adopted two young boys from China. We'd love to go through that process, but most people, when they have 2 kids in this turbulent world that we live in today, we're thinking, well, this is going to be enough responsibility, yet you and your wife decided, no, we're going to adopt kids internationally from China with special needs. And by the way, it wasn't like you're bougie fabulous. Please correct me if I'm wrong. You were a struggling musician making enough to take care of your family. So you go, I'm going to flip houses on the side so I can adopt. Not like everybody else, and again, we love Jeff Lewis, but who's flipping houses and making huge money, which is good, but you were doing it for a greater cause.
Yeah, so I started flipping houses to pay for our adoptions. It's how I got into the business, as you say, and it was it's just, I knew that you could make money in real estate. I've never been motivated by money in my life. I've always wanted to do whatever I'm passionate about, and I think that it's just never been a focus for me. So I don't even, honestly, even now, I don't think about it. I really feel like God has always provided for our family, and we just always kind of just take a day at a time,
right?
Honestly, and because when you step back and you look at it, like I don't think I ever really had money till I needed it, and I will say now that I've got 7 kids and a lot of responsibility, all 5 of them have special needs. Definitely, it takes a lot more money to operate in life now than it did previously. But it's just been amazing because I really believe that God has provided for us every step of the way as we've continued to walk in faith. And as you said, my wife and I, it's not like we're sitting here saying like we just want to, adopt all these kids and do all this stuff. Like, yeah, life would be a lot easier and be a lot more comfortable to just, hang out with my wife. Like, I love my wife. I love spending time with her. I love, even now we go on, date night twice a week because that's important to us. We want to spend time together. And so, it really takes faith, honestly, to step out and say, you know what, these kids deserve a family. These kids deserve to be loved. It's not about me and my comfort and just making sure that my life is, exactly what I want it to be, but that ultimately I believe you can never go wrong in showing love to people who need it. And for whatever reason, that's going to look different in every person's life, but we all should be seeking to love someone who's not loved. And that can happen in our own community. That can happen, and it should. And it can happen with our neighbors and also in a way that we did across the country. And we don't think we're special because of it. We don't think we're these like saints because of it. We don't like when people pat us on the back for it, because this is something we just feel we're called to do.
Right.
It's something that we feel natural about. It's not like some burden or just like some big, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe.
No, not
this.
at all.
It's a blessing, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have its ups and downs, because it's, it's a lot of work. And my wife, homeschools all of our kids. And so it's a lot of giving of time and love, but it is the most rewarding thing. I mean, even way more than the show that I've ever done in my life. It really is a blessing. And so, yeah, we adopted Morris, and we went back and got his best friend, Tucker, who's probably the cutest kid in the world. If you haven't seen him on the show, I mean, he is just literally, my sister calls him a ball of joy, and he is just a joy bomb, like everywhere he goes. And he has Down syndrome. And then we went back and adopted 2 more from the same orphanage, Ezra and Darla. And Ezra kind of took care of Darla at the orphanage, and they're just the sweetest kids. And so all 4 of our kids from China all grew up together in the same orphanage. And they all knew each other. They were all friends. And it's really neat to just see them thrive together in a family. And it's crazy when we look at pictures and look at videos from where they were to what's going on today. I mean, just attention and love and being intentional with them. It's just, it's amazing. It's like magic what happens in their lives. And then most recently, I kind of felt like we're good. We've got six kids. We have a lot on our plate. We've got this show and all these other things going on. I mean, life is crazy. And my wife really, really felt drawn to this girl from Ukraine. And she's actually 15 years old, but she looks like a baby. She was starved the first pretty much 12 years of her life. She only had a bottle, and she's lived literally inside of a crib her whole life. I mean, she's completely stunted her growth. She hasn't hit puberty. She's like a baby. I mean, she learned how to walk just a year ago, and it's a pretty tragic situation. She's from Ukraine over in Eastern Europe, and my wife, I think, was really drawn to her because she'd been to Romania, and it's about 30 miles away where she was actually at from Romania. And it's just not fair. And she's living in a mental institution. It really wasn't an orphanage. And they'll be there till they die. And it was one of these things where I felt really overwhelmed, honestly. I felt like, Miranda, I just don't know if we can do this. Like, I just don't know if I'm up for it, to be honest with you. And she just said, well, all I'm asking is that if you just pray about it and just open, and that's all I'm asking. And so we committed to do that, even though that was hard for me to commit to. I'm like, I don't really want to pray for it, because then if I pray for it, it happens, and it's just going to be difficult, and how are other kids going to react? And there's always these whys, or there's always these like, well, if this happens, what if this happens? And there's so many what ifs in life, where you can always find a reason not to do good for others. It's easy. Well, we need this money, or we need to have more in our savings, or this or that, and to just really have open hands and say, you know what, I really will pray about this. I really will be open to it, even though it's not something I really want to do. I will. And it was crazy, because I think in the process, God really softened my heart, and I just started thinking about her as a person, and just thinking about her as a person who deserves to be loved, who's literally lived her whole life in a crib. I mean, it's not fair. It just isn't. And so we went over there to meet her, and I couldn't even, it's just tragic. It was so heartbreaking to see the life and the lack of life that she had. I mean, she wasn't living life. It's not life to lay in a crib all day when you're 15 years old and learn to walk a year ago. I mean, it's just not right. And so, we really felt, we could give her a better life than what she had today. And so we chose to adopt her. We went over there 3 different times to finally get her. Just brought her home like a month ago. And, it's a lot different than her other situations. She has Down syndrome as well, but there's nothing, quote unquote, wrong with her at all. I mean, she's a beautiful girl that has just had a tragic, first 15 years of her life. And it's going to be a lot of work to try to bring her to any form of normality, because we still have to feed her. She doesn't know how to chew. She obviously has to be changed, and that's just our reality. But it's a joy, because just seeing our kids love her and cherish her and spend time with her and play with her and give her kisses. To me, that is the joy of life, is loving others. And I'm so thankful that I have a wife that, has inspired all of us really to show that love on a daily basis. And so that's where we're at. That's the life we're living, and we're grateful for it. We don't think we're, these special people. We just really feel that's just what we've been called to.
Sure. If you're just tuning in, KIDO Talk Radio, Luke Caldwell joining us, Timber and Love locally, the Boise Boys on HGTV. And Luke, we appreciate this. I know this isn't easy to share with folks, but what was it like? And we've got about 4 minutes left in this segment. What was it like to go into China the first time? I mean, you're a kid from Idaho. You've traveled the country, but China's a whole different world. Going to an orphanage in China and then the Ukraine, different worlds than what we have here.
Yeah, it's definitely different. It's a different culture. It's a different mindset. Most of the kids in those orphanages have special needs, almost all of them, and they're kind of outcasts. Honestly, is they kind of put them in this facility, and that's just where they live their lives, and the rest of the society acts like they're not there, and so you feel that. I mean, you sense it. Our son Ezra, when we adopted him, he had never walked on grass. He was scared of leaves. I mean, it's just so weird to think, how could you be 8 years old and never walked on grass and never been around trees? It's so, you really take for granted the simple things. I know when we got Morris, he had never been asked questions in his entire life. And so when we'd asked him questions like, Morris, how's your day, buddy? He says, I don't know. I don't even know. He didn't even know how to respond. So he'd never been asked a question in his life. I mean, no one ever even took the time to ask him how he was or how he was feeling or what he wanted to do. You're just literally going through, you're in this system. You're in this place where it's just, we are going to feed you. We are going to change you. We're going to spray you down, and you're going to go to bed, and then we're going to do the same thing tomorrow. And it's not that these nannies don't love the kids or, that they're horrible to them or anything like that, but it's not a family. It's not right. I mean, there's hundreds of kids and only a handful of nannies, and it's like, what can you really do to connect with these kids? And so the biggest thing they lack is connection. The biggest thing they lack is personal love in relationship. And so to see that, to see the dire need there, it's hard, because you will never be the same. You can't see that and just be like, oh, that's too bad. It doesn't affect me. Right. It's like, you can't, I can't see that and just go on with my life and act like that's not there. And so, whether it's trying to help those other kids get adopted now, or whether being a voice for those kids who don't have a voice, that's me and my wife's passion for sure. And that's one thing we are so thankful for with the show, is that we're able to bring exposure to the needs, not only in our own country, but around the world, of kids that just need to be loved.
Right. And you share that with so many folks. Have people been inspired to adopt from the show?
Definitely, yeah. We get a lot of emails, a lot of comments, and people that have definitely said, your family has inspired us to adopt, or thank you for exposing us to, kids with special needs. They can just, integrate into your family, and doesn't have to be this huge ordeal, and they can, be loved and give love, and it's just, it can be normal. It doesn't have to be this extreme, tragic thing. It can just be who we are as a family. And yeah, there's quirks and things, but that's every family.
Right. It's never too much for you.
I feel like it can get hard at times, for sure, but I'm thankful I've got a teammate in my wife and our family, and and friends like Clint, who support us and encourage us, and together as a community in church, that we're there for each other.
More coming up next. Luke Caldwell joins us. Remember, locally, Timber and Love. You can watch his show, HGTV, along with Clint Robertson on HGTV. That's Saturdays at 6 o'clock our time currently. And more coming up next, KIDO Talk Radio and the KIDO Talk Radio app. And time has flown. We've got a few minutes left. Why don't we do this? Let's get you to work safely and on time. KIDO Talk Radio, traffic and weather together. Good morning, Dave. And once again, Luke Caldwell joining us. You remember the old days when traffic was nothing here.
Exactly. It's definitely changed, hasn't it?
It has indeed. And the real estate market has changed. Dave Petzo and I go back and forth. We can remember when homes in Canyon County were cut from a median price of $140 to $70. Ada County as well. Now we're living in the gilded age of real estate. As someone who does this for a living, your thoughts?
Man, it's shocking, honestly. I keep thinking, like, when's the bottom going to fall out? I mean, this is crazy that prices are this high. I mean, I was looking just in the North End yesterday. I'm like, man, this is crazy. Like, I just don't understand how it's continuing to grow. I mean, and even for us, like, it's scary because we're like, are we really going to buy a junker in the North End for $280,000 and then, put $200,000 into it and still make a profit? And the answer is yes, because people are buying them. And I don't know how it's possible, but definitely a lot of people are moving here to retire here. They're selling their homes in Southern California, Northern California, Seattle, Denver, and they're coming here, and it's still a lot less expensive to live here than those other places. And I think that's driving the market up, which is kind of a bummer for locals, or it's a blessing for locals because they're able to cash out and make a lot of money on their homes.
Indeed, but again, you see these shows like your show,
mm-hmm.
and you guys make it look easy. We know it's not.
It is not easy.
Well, and I think you guys, and I don't think you guys convey, hey, we're all in. We've got to do this. We've got families to feed. Let's talk a little bit about the profession of house flipping.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are a lot of people that have tried it and failed.
Yeah.
What's the inside skinny like in that industry?
It really is a dog eat dog business in the sense that, there's all kinds of different people doing all kinds of different things. And, for Clint and I, we kind of had to look at and survey our own city and say, how can we add value to what's going on here? And the times have changed where you could buy, a $150,000 house, put $25,000 into it and make a $20,000 profit. And that was never really our business model anyways. That's kind of the quick flippers. It's guys who just come in, throw in paint, some cheap carpet, and, put on some new numbers, call it good, flip the house. That's never been our business model. And it's really not what we want to be. It's not what we stand by. I'm not saying anything,
right.
against those guys. They're still fixing up the house and selling it. But for us, we really want to create and restore, renovate homes to a high standard, a beautiful level, a place where the house is really going to stand the test of time. And we stand by our work. And so, even now, we're meeting today. Clint's meeting with someone from season 1 from 2 years ago. She had something come up in her house, and we're going to take care of it, because that's ultimately we're not going anywhere.
Right.
And we want to make sure that, the people who buy our homes are going to actually be able to, have a great home. And not to say that things don't go wrong, but ultimately we want to stand by our product. And so that's kind of the way we went into it, is we said, look, let's buy at a little bit higher price of a house we know needs a lot of love. No one else wants to take this on. No one wants to take this house that's had a fire, that's a triplex, that's been thrashed for the last 30 years, and then convert it back to a single family home, bring back the original wood, make it gorgeous, and then resell it, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of investment. It's a lot of risk, and we're hoping that it's going to pay off. And thus far, for the most part, it has. But, it's a different business model. It's a lot more work, a lot more effort, a lot more design involved, and really a lot more expertise. But that's really the niche that we've found in our community, and I think it's worked out well.
Well, and whether it's the renovation of the fire station, which you shared with your audience, or your own home. I mean, you practice what you preach. You're living in one of your homes, and that was the end of season 1. That was a big emotional episode that you, sir, don't have a problem sharing with millions of strangers.
And I'll tell you, it's interesting. I've had people knock on the door actually and be like, "Hey, I just want you to know I really love your show and I love your house." I'm like, "Oh, great to meet you."
Well, I can't confirm that I was one of them, but yes.
No, it's funny. People are sweet. We've got a great, community, and we're just grateful to live in a house where our kids can have a big place to roam. I mean, we've got a full acre on the river where the kids can run around, and we're 5 minutes from downtown and live right on the Greenbelt. I mean, Boise is incredible. I mean, this is the best place to live in the world.
See, I'm partial to the Treasure Valley, but you're the expert, Luke. And this is, again, another goofy fanboy question. What's the deal with you on the moped? I think that is so Boise when you open
the moped.
show.
You know, I like it in
the music
in the summer times. You know, it's nice. It's just to feel the wind in your face and kind of zip around and the sound of the little horn. I mean,
right.
It's fun, and it gets great gas mileage as well.
Well, it does in comparison to what Clint drives. Now, a couple more things, and we want to give you the last 2 minutes for some inspiration. About 20 seconds. What's the most challenging flip that you've shared with the audience?
Man, that's tough because every one of them has, you know, a different, unique story. But I think some of them definitely are. Probably the hardest, honestly, was that triplex turning back to a single family home. You don't realize how many walls have been added and how much has just gone on through the years.
Right.
And to try to take that back, to try to envision what it was and even make it better, it's tricky because it takes a lot of vision, it takes a lot of thought, it takes a lot of money. And a lot of risk, but at the end of the day, we're just so thankful that it's paying off.
My favorite question, is that a load-bearing wall? We get that a lot.
I ask that a lot.
Finally, 2 minutes left. For people that are struggling, that are challenged, you've shared with us your faith. What can you share with them to brighten their day, sir?
You know, I just feel like there's a lot of hope in life. You know, I really know in my life and in my wife's life, you know, we've gone through a lot of pain. We've gone through hurt. We've gone through frustrations, discouragement, betrayal from people and from even within the church. And it's hard sometimes to look at all that and to say like, gosh, like, what is going on, you know? And I know we all can get to these places of just, you know, darkness where we're just like overwhelmed. But at the end of the day, I believe that God brings hope into our lives by his love and his compassion and his goodness, that he loves every single one of us. It doesn't matter who you are, you know, what race you are, what background you are, what orientation you are. God loves every person. He's created us so special and unique. And I tell this to my kids all the time. It's like, God has made you who you are. Like, you are a special person who really does have value in your life. And you need to find, you know, what you're passionate about and what he wants you to do with your life. And what I would have ever thought that God's plan for my life would be to adopt, you know, 5 kids with special needs and to have a TV show and all this stuff. No,
right.
Wouldn't even dream that up, nor was it ever something that I would want to do. But I know it's where he has me today. And so I'm grateful for it. I'm just walking in faith. And the same is true for you. Every life has value. Find what that value is and move forward and find joy in the little things. I mean, what an amazing joy that we have, even being born in America, being here, living in the city. There's beauty all around us. Find that beauty every single day and enjoy it.
Luke Caldwell, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
You're listening to Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.